lots to chew on here, but I'm going to give the first opportunity to chew to our two discussants. I mean, it seems to me that where we're starting to come out a bit is, aside from all the detail, is this view that, okay, it's neither demand side only or supply side only, it's both and. Neither is it top down only or bottom up only, it's both and. And I suppose the cynic in me says, well, where does that take us? Is that taking us anywhere new? And if not, kind of, you know, couldn't we have come up with that as a conclusion much earlier on in the process? David, what do you think about that?
Yeah, my role here is to be the sort of grumpy old man. But I mean, actually, I don't disagree hugely with anything that the two speakers have said. But there are areas, though, in which I think we should put a bit of a damper on things. We need a bit of sort of hardcore realism on certain points. And one of them is this idea that this is a welcome rebalancing. The thing that worries me about that is that it is true that the people who work in the bank and DFID and elsewhere on public sector management have found that they, in many areas, they haven't made much headway because they can't address the politics, which actually lies behind everything. Now, how should we be responding to that? It seems to me we should be responding to that by thinking about how one might handle the politics. And to sort of shift to the demand side doesn't seem like the right solution for that particular problem. It's an easy thing to do for big formal development agencies, because by working through civil society you can work at a sort of an arm's length on the politics. But I think there's a logical non sequitur somewhere there. If you fail on the supply side because you're not addressing the politics, shift to the supply to the demand side. I think all of the research evidence, without exception, says that what works involves a pincer movement of working politically on the supply side and politically on the demand side, both together. And one of the things that hampers the efforts of development organizations to pick up that message is that their internal structures don't favor a closely coordinated pincer movement from both sides, operating politically on both sides. Now, I don't say that's easy to do, but I think we need to be realistic and accept that the welcome rebalancing is a sort of second best response to the challenges that are posed. I had three things. That's the middle thing. We need to be realistic about the incentives and structural problems that exist on the donor agency side, which are taking us down certain pathways, which are not necessarily what is dictated by our diagnosis of what the problem is. The first thing was about sort of theory and the current climate. The sort of rhetoric about social accountability sort of assumes that political systems in all parts of the world are imperfectly functioning democracies, which need a little bit of help to start functioning like fully fledged democracies. But actually, I mean, all the theory in this area says, in very poor countries, particularly countries which have dominant sort of peasant populations, which are not even heavily urbanized, democracy doesn't function anything like in the way that it does in highly industrialized countries, and therefore we need to face up to that and work with that reality instead of pretending that we have systems that just need to be tweaked. And in the current world situation, public opinion thinks that what is possible in Egypt is possible anywhere, and it's becoming, very horribly apparent that that's not even the case in the rest of the Middle East. Sensitivity to country context is really terribly important in this field, and we shouldn't be any of us, the bank, DFID, or ODI, should not be carried along by this sort of current wave of enthusiasm, which suggests that what the Egyptian middle classes do is a good model for what can be done in other parts of the world. So let's all be a bit less rhetorical about these things. Now, having said all of that, I mean, the issue of what you do to improve the way governments behave in poor developing countries is still an enormously big problem, and therefore I'm very sympathetic to any approach which says, well, look, we're going to try this and we'll see how it goes, and then we'll try to treat this as a learning experience, which I think is the style that that Fletcher has imposed on the Mwananchi program. The one thing to be said there, I think, and this relates to the issue of sort of evidence and measurement, is that the principal obstacle to learning in this area is to collect very high quality evidence on all of the factors in the situation which may be responsible for producing a good or a bad result. Randomized controlled trials, when they're done very well, sometimes give you that qualitative evidence. Often they don't, and there are some notorious examples of very bad evidence being produced by those methods because insufficient attention has been given to understanding the full context in which particular things have happened. So I think the challenge here is to realize that there are things that are more important than measuring the outcomes, and they have to do with understanding properly the processes and then drawing very careful conclusions from that comprehensive analysis. I'll leave it at that.